Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Madam Presiding Officer, as always, I stand in the House on the vote of members of the public who live in the constituency of Scarborough Mount Grace and who has allowed me to be here to represent them and to represent Tobago. In preparation for my intervention in this motion, Madam Presiding Officer, I looked for the politically correct terms to describe part of the contextual milieu of this motion. But I could not find definitions for political Alzheimer's or political dementia. But I did find hypocrisy, duplicity, and two-tonguedness. As for terms not so politically correct, I found that it was not applicable to describe someone as politically senile. Although the mover of the motion and the PNM reps in general hope Tobagonians have short memory. Allow me to read from Hansard of another place. Quote, "The reason why this Tobago House of Assembly Act 1996, is no good is because the UNC government, hustling to try and gain some points in the Tobago House of Assembly elections, aborted the work of the Joint Select Committee and destroyed the promise of constitutional guarantees for the people of Tobago." That's Colum Inbert, 20 years ago. Hypocrisy, duplicity, and two-tonguedness. Today they come to say, vote for a bill that has been rejected, that they're not going to change, not even a sentence in, and tell us, vote for it because we have to take little and live long. We have to make baby steps. Madam Presiding Officer, if I were to take the motion serious, or even half serious, I would say that we've been asked to accept pieces of proposed legislation that are known to be fraught with errors in the hope that we can get a little money, that we can sometime in the future ask another government, maybe 100 years from today, ask another government, let me amend this. We in Tobago have been at this game of trying to represent ourselves and the aspirations of Tobagonians since 1895. That's almost 6 years after the Union. Trying. Bigard came on the scene in the 1920s. We had a House of Parliament in Trinidad and Tobago where there was no Tobagonian for 20-something years. And then we had one Tobagonian for another 30-something years. To get to the place today where we have 39 members and 2 Tobagonians. And we must somehow accept that this dogmatic colonialist behavior by the Prime Minister should be accepted because he's too big to change. Or you could say, well, you want in Tobago, I ain't changing nothing, that's all you have to take. That is the attitude. But we have uniqueness in Tobago. And if there is one word that summarizes the Tobago ambition and the core value that is Tobagonian, it is ambition. We have ambition. It was ambition that drove Sandy to start the revolution as a slave. Ambition. Ambition that motivated him to risk his life in search of freedom. freedom and justice. It is ambition that drove Biggert and Fargo James, ambition that motivated Robinson and Murray, ambition which is so faithfully served as a guiding light to our forefathers must now be the singular focus of all Tobagonians. We must come to the place when the Tobago ambition gets to the fore. The ambition that must lead Tobago and all of Tobago to have one common intention. We have been struggling for self-determination for 140 plus years. One common intention. I've said in this house before that there are Tobagonians who have allowed a Trinidad party, and I'm going to keep saying it, to come to Tobago and divide us. And we must come to the place in Tobago when we say no to that. You must have an ambition to stand firm in trying to pursue the Tobago agenda. The Tobago agenda is creating legislation in the parliament that we now have that allows Tobago to self-actualize. The ambition and intention must be undergirded by sound fundamental principles that help guide collective decision-making. Not PNM decision-making, but collective decision-making and governance arrangements. These bills that we are discussing and this motion we are discussing is about getting to a place where we have laws that allows us the best governance arrangements between the island of Tobago and the island of Trinidad. For governance arrangements that will determine how we make laws and formulate and implement policy, it is critical that we understand that you don't go to the House and pass any law because you have majority. You don't just do that. That is what we have. We still have a law reform committee existing for decades, and we still have sedition laws on the books because they go to the House and just do whatever they want. Governance decisions must always and everywhere extend beyond the domain of the government. Governance arrangements must include the mechanisms that allow for meaningful collaboration in legislative and policy decisions between the elected and the electors. Governance must necessarily and carefully consider the implications regarding the well-being and the welfare of children, the sustenance and prosperity of a people. And we must ask ourselves whether this arrangement between Tobago and Trinidad allows Tobago and the children of the future of Tobago to be prosperous in this union that we have. And if the answer is no, then we must reject the bills. Madam Presiding Officer, let me now get to the meat of my presentation, because I tried to listen to the members from Darrell Spring Way, and it became harder and harder and harder. But I went to the tea house to get a cup of tea, and I listened from there. Tobago is caught up in a politico-legal governance arrangement where the central government in Trinidad can plan and execute policy for Trinidad and Tobago that is beneficial to Trinidad and detrimental to Tobago. Where, notwithstanding the THA Act, the central government in Trinidad can, by adverse application of the legislation, widely overrides Tobago's ability to plan and implement policy for Tobago's benefit. And I'll give examples of that in a while. And where the central government might be unable to confine or restrict Tobago using legislative mechanisms, it can still delay, stymie, obstruct, or outright prevent Tobago from properly planning and executing policy in Tobago for Tobago's benefit by withholding the necessary resources required to do so. That is the position that Tobago finds itself in. Today, the laws on the book allows for, despite the THE Act, for the Ministry of Energy to say to us at spell, we are going to tax you with royalties and prevent you from getting any license whatsoever. When the THA Act says the royalties should be paid to THA. Exactly. So the parliament, the government can just override, not the parliament, the government and the cabinet can override the parliament and therefore the laws of the country and do what they want, and therefore we must make laws that are foolproof. And that is the challenge that Tobago faces. We have come to the place now in the last 3-4 years, I believe, where Tobago is beginning to wake up. More and more, we are seeing the value of our resources in the land and in the sea and in the air. We are more and more aware of our inherent might, that is our right to self-determination. And I think there is a fear. There is a fear that we may get so fed up and frustrated with the subjugation and the colonial enslavement from Port of Spain that we may just decide, like my brother from Roxborough, Argyle, to pick up a marble and go. That is a fear that is allowing the PNM today to dangle 6.8%. The member is clear that despite the law, the member said it, despite the law that allows for the government to give us 6.9% today, the member is sure that we could only get the minimum. He called it the floor. Accepting that the government can override the laws of the parliament, and therefore we must create a foolproof law that prevents the government from so doing. The member for Belgarden Goodwood, Belgarden Glamorgan, raised the issue of the FRC. You know, we had the DRC, and we have the FRC now, saying the exact same thing. Consider separation, consider this, consider that, and then give us the minimum. The same committee, with the majority in parliament, having to sit in a dispute. Maybe, Madam Presiding Officer, they should consider an ERC, an Energy Review Commission. I don't know why they skip out the E. After D is E before you get to F. I don't know why they skip it out. Madam Presiding Officer, to make the point, in 1995, the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago approved 45 million in development expenditure for Tobago. 1995. The Parliament approved it, and then the government gave $43 million. So the Parliament, the government went to the Parliament and said, listen, we are going to propose $45 million. The Parliament approved, and then the government decided. We're giving them 43 after the fact. In 1997, the Parliament under UNC-NAR coalition approved $81 million. And maybe there's a lesson right there. The development budget jumped almost double in 2 years under a different government, because you know now, for the last 3 years, every single year, the PNM has reduced the development budget in Tobago. Every single year. And at the same time, increasing the development budget for every ministry in Trinidad. Okay. And telling the people of Tobago that the development disparity between the islands is so great that Tobago only needs less. Tobago is so developed, more than Trinidad, that Tobago needs less and Trinidad needs more. And we must take that, because Works Division built a road. So in 1997, Parliament approved $81 million, and then the government doubled that money in that fiscal year. The UNC-NAR coalition doubled their allocation without going back to Parliament, making the point
I see no irrelevance to the presentation.
The bills of autonomy.
Yes, and member, I see no irrelevance. Assemblyman Morris, please continue.
Madam President, every time I speak in this house, I am reminded that English is a difficult language.
Continue, member.
So, the UNC doubled the allocation, and then as soon as Vincent Lass, what the next man named, Griffith, crossed the floor, the next year, the UNC decided that they were going to budget $80 million, and then gave us half. So that the law allows the government, the cabinet, to override the lawmaking body, which is the Parliament, because the law is weak. And that is the critical point, you know. The law is weak today. Today, we have a situation where, I don't want to take away the Secretary of Finance presentation. Today, we have a situation where the Minister of Finance, every single year, goes to a media review, increases the budget to Trinidad, and leaves the Tobago budget as it is. Because they are in government, and the Parliament apparently are powerless to stop them, because the law has not made the right governance arrangement to constrain the government and the cabinet. And so, Madam Presiding Officer, we must ensure that the laws that we make and approve in this house, and when we vote in this house, we send a clear message that we are not going to accept a piece of law that we know is flawed, in the hope that somehow in the future we will get it. We've been doing that. We've been at this house, the member for Darrell Spring took us back to 1977 when Mr. Robinson and Mr. Murray, Dr. Murray, went to the house. 1977. What he did not say is that it is the PNM who watered down the bill. That's what he didn't say. The PNM who watered down the bill. In 1996, it is the PNM who watered down the bill.
Members,
Political
please.
Alzheimer's.
I'm sure you all are aware of Standing Order 44. Please, no interruption when a member is on his feet presenting. Continue, Secretary.
Thank you for the protection, Madam Presiding Officer. Madam Presiding Officer, in fiscal 25, the Minister of Finance has budgeted $55 million less than for Tobago than they did last year. I mean, let's just imagine that. For the Division of Infrastructure, $36.5 million. It can't even pay the government workers' wages. But they have considered, as the law says, they have considered what the development needs of Tobago are, and they have determined that $205 million is what Tobago requires. Well, I tell you, the development budget
Last sitting, and that was decided upon the allocation for Tobago, 45-3.
Be so guided, member. Please continue.
Madam President, I would like to reclaim my time. Please and thanks.
Continue.
The development budget for the country of Trinidad and Tobago allows Tobago in this budget 3.6%. What the law says? The law says 4.03 to 6.9. Because the cabinet, again, can override the parliament and do what they want. Because the THA Act and the laws of Trinidad and Tobago allow them to so do. So what can happen if we accept these bills? Let's suppose that, because the only good thing in the bill is that we have a higher guarantee. The bill offers nothing else. The bill doesn't allow us to make a law in Tobago that can stand up in Trinidad and Tobago. Because at any time, the government in Trinidad can go and pass a law and say, your law is now void because we make a law on that issue. So the only benefit, I want to tell Tobagonians this, the only benefit of this thing is that they could give us a little more money and you have a higher guarantee. But what happens if Imbert next year, I hear Ibo say that he will read the next budget, decide, we pass this bill, that you need another $60 billion. But he approves, he goes to the house and gets approved $30 billion first. And at 6%, we get the same figure of $30 billion because the figure is what we would get. And then at the media review, true to form, he goes for $40 billion and gets it. And Tobago gets the same dollar figure.
Assemblyman Morris. Assemblyman James is making a presentation based on this motion. No. You do not have that authority to dictate how persons make their presentation. He is not opposing any standing orders. Assemblyman James, please continue. And I may remind you all how you all go about making interruptions. You stand on a point of order or a point of clarification. Continue.
Reclaiming my time. Madam Presiding Officer, the bills says that Parliament shall appropriate for the use of the House of Assembly in any financial year no less than 6.8% of the total sum appropriated by the Parliament in that financial year, or such other percentage as may be determined by the Fiscal Review Committee. Let me read it again, The bills say that Parliament can appropriate in a financial year any such percentage, any percentage, as may be determined by the FRC under Section 42 and approved by the Parliament by resolution. So the FRC can decide, after reviewing the thing, that, hey, you only need this amount, and this is what we're giving you. Because I've made the point already that the cabinet can disregard the Parliament and do what it wants. That's what the law allows it to do, and that's what this law allows as well. So there is no guarantee. Let me say this. How the country operates now and how the laws are written, there is no guarantee to Tobago of any 6.8%. None. And it's a funny thing, you know. In the 96 Act, it is Section 42. In the Island Government Bill is Section 43 in the ATHA Act now. It's Section 42. Going over the exact same thing. The Tobago Island Government Bill is asking the FRC to give due consideration to the same things that the THA, current THA asks Cabinet to do every year. What's the sense in making a law like that? What's the sense? What's the sense in creating a committee?
Member, you have 5 minutes.
Madam Presiding Officer, let me move to energy. Because we are articulating a position that instead of a fixed percentage, we need a fair share of the revenue that is generated in this state, this democratic state called Trinidad and Tobago. A fair share. As the law stands now, the people of Tobago are half owners of NGC. The people of Tobago are half owners of CAL. We have no say in how those entities are run. But we are the owners. The people of Tobago are 100% owners of the energy resources that are in our waters. And whenever a bid round comes, the government of Trinidad and Tobago awards or sells a block of energy space to somebody, and Tobago gets zero benefit from it. That's what the law still allows. Block 22, not the one in Canaan, the one off Charlottesville, 5.8 nautical miles from Tobago, 50 nautical miles from Trinidad, controlled from Port of Spain. Block 22A, the reserves in Block 22, $43.3 trillion. Not a say we have. Block 22A, 8 to 10 miles from Tobago, 48 to 52 miles from the nearest point in Trinidad, being Toco, some point in Toco. Not a say. Block 22B, again, 7 to 10 miles from Tobago, 50 to 55 miles from Trinidad. No control. North Coast Marine Area, this is an interesting name. North Coast Marine Area, maybe it's North Coast of Trinidad, that's what Tobago is. off the western side of Tobago. Poinsettia, 22 miles from Tobago, 35 miles from Trinidad. And they've been taking revenue, when you average revenue to the new law of 35% now, they've been taking revenue of $2 million since US per day since 2009 from Poinsettia. Not a say or a cent for Tobago. Shell has now run pipelines from Orchid Field and Shaconia Field that are closer to Castara than Poinsettia, 7 miles I am told, to pump to the platform in Poinsettia and to Central Trinidad, volumes that we don't know anything about. And we must sit in Tobago and say, Tobago cannot be delineated. Calypso Field, 10 to 15 miles from Tobago, 60 miles from Trinidad. Tobago cannot be defined. So, Justice Anthony Lucky, in an opinion, because the definition of Tobago that they don't want to put in the Constitution because Alwari, some fake lawyer, say.
Member. I'm going to remind you all again about your language in this house. I won't allow that word. And your time is actually up.
Presiding, request an additional 10 minutes of speaking time to allow the member to finish his contribution.
Honorable House members, the question is that an additional speaking time of 10 minutes be added to Mr. Assemblyman James to complete his presentation. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. Member, please continue.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Justice Anthony Lucky, one of the eminent jurists in the country, says, and I quote, having looked at the drafts and so on that have been floating around since 2018, says, I have to emphasize, as I do throughout this paper, in a position paper that he wrote, that the definition of Trinidad and Tobago as set out in the Constitution should not be replaced or repealed with the draft defining each island. If Section 1 of the Constitution is repealed and replaced with the draft, I have briefly seen that there must be consequential amendments to several acts where the political entity that is the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is treated as one state. We have proposed, we, the THA, proposed in 2015, that the one state remains, but changed to a federal state. Justice Lucky is saying, that can be done, but you have to change several acts. What is wrong with changing acts? We change acts all the time. So it can be done. He goes on to say, I want to quote, nevertheless, it would be convenient, no, let me go back before that. If I see the draft bill, I should be able to provide more substantial reasons why the clauses that I refer to in general terms, if accepted, can create more problems than we initially envisaged. Nevertheless, this is the critical part, nevertheless, it would be convenient to set out Article 50 in the Convention on the Laws of the Seas, which deals with delineation of archipelagic states waters, because it supports my view that the archipelagic waters between the islands of Trinidad and Tobago can be divided. This is Lucky saying that between Tobago and Trinidad, the waters can be divided. And the article reads, and he's quoting now Article 50 from the UNCLOS, Within its archipelagic waters, the archipelagic state may draw closing lines for the delineation of internal waters in accordance with Article 9, 10, and 11. So according to Lucky, the laws of the UN allows for Tobago to be delineated from Trinidad, and we can get, even without changing the constitution to a federal arrangement, we can get a definition of Tobago that says, listen, all you in Tobago, from this line is all you own. And from this line is we own. What is wrong with that? What is so hard that PNM people can't say, oh gosh, let me put in the definition? What's so wrong with that? We see it in front of our face. Why wait 100 years to do it? Because Keith Rowley says so? Ah, chat. You were there calling Kamala by her first name.
Members,
Calling Kamala by her first name. You didn't hear yourself.
I'm glad I have the opportunity to address this. In as much as members of the cabinet are not members of this August chamber, I would prefer that you all address them with the respect of their office. I would not allow first name calling, last name calling. Member, please continue.
I find I ain't get back my time, you know. I find I interrupt me, I can't get back my time. Another example, Madam Presiding Officer, and this will be my last example. CAL, which I'm theorizing that the people of Tobago, because you know they want to talk about people inside the island, the people of Tobago owns half of CAL. The people. Because we have this one state. CAL, Caribbean Airlines, have been making large forays into the region to take up what Liat left behind. To show how they are no vision. They're building an airport terminal in Tobago with no business plan. The only business plan they have is that we build it and people go come. Me I know if it's a tourist attraction they build it. But
Member relevance.
I am making the point of how the laws impact Tobago, the bills. So CAL has a flight from Tobago to Barbados today that is $700 more from Trinidad to Barbados. CAL. So the Tobagonian who doesn't want to go to Trinidad must pay $700. So it's effectively telling Tobagonians, listen, save $300, go to Trinidad first and come. And telling the Bajan and those who are flying through Barbados to get to Tobago, listen, go to Trinidad, you can save yourself $300. CAL. Deciding to make Grantley Adams almost like a home port for them and have 16 flights leaving and going into Barbados and can't put on a flight for Carnival. But we own half of CAL. And so, people of Tobago, we have to make laws. We have to approve laws in this house that benefits you. We have to make laws that ensures that the one ambition that we have, the one ambition that should unite everybody in Tobago, is to ensure that we are creating a law today that will stand the test of time for the next 100 years without change. And we must make a law that ensures that there is equity between the islands of Tobago and the island of Trinidad. I thank you.